Hello and welcome to week 2 of the Lookoff, where the rules are arbitrary and can be changed at any time. I'm Brad Kotecki, here with Libby Lehman.
Good to be back.
And Joe.
Do I just say nothing right now, or
yeah,
that's at least one of us has to be completely silent on the intro, right?
Well, we took a lot.
Let's start over.
Yeah,
let's start over.
Are you being serious? We heard your feedback. All right, we're still working on the. Exciting week of Ultimate. We saw a lot of teams with wins get more wins. The rich got richer, the poor got poorer, and we had one exciting game, one game that could barely be called a game, and just excitement all around. So we'll get right into it. Week. Game 1 was Libby versus Felipe. Libby pulled out a win, 13-12. Libby, would you like to take us through that?
Yeah, sure. On our side, I think we saw a little bit more chemistry, a little bit more composure with the disc. Week 1, we were throwing a lot of turnovers, and I think we were able to connect on a lot more of those here in the second week. I think we kind of struggled a little bit midway through the game, and I think that's going to be something that we continue to work on with some older players that maybe haven't played super high level in a couple seasons or so. Decades. But keeping our legs under us and kind of maintaining that conservatism with the disc. I think overall between both teams it was very much a game of unders, even though we have some throwers on our team. We've really just been working the undercuts, and I think Felipe's team did the same. I thought that they did really well kind of owning individual matchups, and we struggled a little bit with that. But yeah, overall it was a tight game, frustrating at times, but super fun to come out with the win.
Joe, what did you see that game from both teams?
Well, I was pretty happy to see Libby pick up the win. I was cheering for her with pretty much no shame while filming or commentating, mostly just to get revenge on Felipe for beating us in week 1. So, it felt good to see the revenge, even if not in my own hands. And but I think we saw Amir have a much stronger game.
He's back.
I said it on the camera when he had that huge layout D, playing shutdown defense on the handler. But he was back into classic Winter League Amir form, just slow, methodical, moving the disc up the field for his team, and had some crucial Ds as well. Libby and Nickel both had big games, which was pretty important for them. Pickup Dutch had a good game without tiring himself out too much for our game, which was very clutch. On Felipe's side, I think Abby Cheng had sort of a more impactful game than she did in week 1. They did a better job of finding space for her in the offense. But still, last season she was like completely dominant and sort of taking over on offense a lot of the times for her team. So, still not quite sort of at that level. And maybe that's just, a difference in her team, difference in how the league is playing this year. There are a lot of factors there, but I do think that she had a bigger impact for them this year or this week. And I think that they're a team that still has a lot of fun even when they're struggling, and I think you kind of saw that. And they're a fun team to play against and a fun team to watch even when they're not picking up wins. So
I think the Abbies are going to be a big key to their success. They had a few points that game where they basically went back and forth to each other. Worked out well. The one thing I did want to point out about this game before we give either team too much credit is there were a lot of turnovers.
Oh yeah.
It was a pretty sloppy game. Red had some issues. It seemed like they had the disc in the red zone, whatever you would want to call the red zone, like 1,000 times and only scored 3 of them. Just stagnant. The space didn't exist and a lot of double cuts.
Yeah, and I think that's something we definitely recognized, but going from last week, we basically saw that the full length of the field. And so I think the fact that we've now narrowed that down to just the last 25% or so, I'll take that improvement.
It's tough too. Like even if you recognize that stuff during the game, it's really tough. You don't have a lot of time to like talk about as a team what kind of adjustments you can make. You have no halftime basically. You get one quick timeout, trying to hustle between points to play as much as you can. So even if you recognize, hey, our end zone set right now is awful, it's hard to like figure out how to adjust that in game.
And I think even as you recognize it gets later on in the game where players are more likely to make hasty decisions in the end zone, trying to, end a point or get a quick score. So you kind of have those forces acting against each other.
I mean, really, you just need pots throwing hammers in the end. I mean, if it works on Universe, it'll work for the rest of the game. That's what I always say.
Yeah, but that was same third too.
Yeah, same third directly over his head hammer. That's how you win games.
A big win because this was the one that stopped the league from being 4 undefeated and 4 winless teams. I think potentially when it comes down to playoff seeding, Libby might see this tiebreaker could be the difference between making the playoffs and not.
Yeah.
But you never know. Anything else on that game?
I got nothing.
I did write down Libby's pools, some of the best pools.
Yes.
I think it was
very,
3 pools
good.
in a row coming towards the camera side that were within 3 feet of the back end zone, but you didn't cover them. You guys just let 2 throws get off before you were down there playing defense.
This was in the fields. Libby's team would be trash.
Yeah, I can't make up for everyone.
Speaking of trash, Iris and Gurgit played.
Oh man, that's not fair.
Gurgit ended up winning 14-13. At the time when I was watching the game, it seemed like it was much further than that. It was further away from Iris's team than I actually realized when I watched it again. Iris was severely shorthanded. I think you were missing 4 people.
I think 4 guys. I think that's right. Although I'm not going to go through in my head.
Yeah.
But I think 4 is right.
Biggest takeaway from this, is Iris the best player in Winter League?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't even think it's a discussion.
She's on.
And I'll still say it, she should have picked first. Or it shouldn't have been ranked first.
Yeah, I mean, she has twice as many goals as the next highest person in the league after 2 weeks.
Yeah, she was
That's
uncoverable.
insane.
Uncoverable, and I think she threw 2 more throws in that game that were dropped in the end zone that would have been extra assists, just if we're keeping track of those stats. But anyway, Joe, would you like to walk us through what happened?
Yeah, I think I was pretty happy overall with how we played. A lot of the things that we wanted to improve on from week 1, sort of valuing possession of the disc, finding the right times to take shots and sort of find the right matchups to take shots to. We did a much better job of that. Cough, Swanee, cough. I think, Swanee had a great game, picked up a couple Ds. He, was good with the disc in his hands, had a couple big pump fakes that had people on the sidelines gasping, but, I had confidence in him to make the right decision, and he did that in this game. And obviously Iris, played huge again. And really we, like you said, I think this game was pretty close throughout. We had really just a couple unfortunately timed mistakes and then drops in particular that I think were the difference. We had like maybe 3 drops, like potential goals that were dropped, another couple sort of late in the game that we dropped, and to their credit, they had a couple of their guys come up with huge plays when they threw up junk. Zach Burns and Zach Johnston in particular. So, obviously we'd love to see us come down with one of those goals, and we'd love to see Burns not sky 3 guys 3 times in a game, but that's
it was his birthday.
Yeah, I guess that's how it goes sometimes. Happy birthday, Barnes. We did it for you.
Libby, what were your takeaways from this game?
One thing that I noticed in Iris's team that, looking at the roster, I would never advocate for, but they had a lot of quick pickups and getting the disc moving right away. And sometimes that can be not the best decision when you don't have a lot of strong handlers, but I think that really worked well for them. But for Gergat, I mean, I think they came out with a win, but I think that they were really struggling kind of behind the disc. They have some of I'd say the best upfield receivers, but I think where they were missing the mark was, with the disc, especially without Stitch on the field too much. I think that they could have used someone that was a little bit more consistent in making those connections with the throws. I will say that they, through a couple different things on defense, they did kind of a team poaching defense that was really effective off of a deep pool that I think we could probably look to see them utilize in future weeks. They also, I think, threw a zone at least 1 or 2 points.
Once, I think, yeah.
Yeah, which I think that was a little bit less effective, but I always like to see people mixing things up.
Joe, you ran 3-3 every possible point?
We did, yes.
Was the idea behind that make as much room for your women as possible? What was the thought process?
Yeah, that was definitely. I mean, there was a couple things. First of all, we were missing a bunch of guys.
Yeah, we were missing guys.
We had all of our women. I think we had 6 guys and 5 women. So numbers wise, it kind of made sense. I think we definitely have. I think we have the strongest women in the league from top to bottom. So the more opportunities we can have to sort of give them more space to work and utilize those matchups, I think is to our benefit. And so, I think those things combined, we kind of went into the week thinking, all right, we're probably going to play 3-3 every single time. And then when we were doing that, obviously Gergat then was playing 4-2 more often, and then we sort of fell into that rhythm of, all right, when we're in the gen zone, we're 3-3. When they're in the gen zone, we're 4-2. And that's kind of how the whole game went.
And I think one thing, talking about the ratio, that that's something that we changed up this year, and I know some teams have struggled, mine included, with running the 3-3 because of numbers, but I think I would like to ideally see captains going 3-3 more often. Obviously there's some strategy there between going 4-2 and 3-3, but the overall push and the whole reason of doing this was to get more women on the field, and running 3-3 whenever the team is capable of doing that. And so I think that's kind of a balance there, because we also all want to win, and we need to put the strategy in place to do that. But I do think that I'd like to see more captains continue to try to utilize that 3-3 ratio.
Okay.
From a commissioner standpoint.
But there's also still more guys per team.
Yeah, and that's,
especially when you factor in absences, it's harder to find women pickups, and so there's more frequently teams that are struggling to get up to 4 or 5 women than the same.
Yeah, and
definitely.
I mean that's my team has yet to go 3-3. So.
All right, Commissioner.
You can call me hypocrite.
On that note, before we move on, I just want to say the funniest commentary of this weekend was Amir saying, quote, "It's unbeatable. The only thing that can stop it is having spirit." Which I don't want to get into the context of, but is perfect. Terrible thing to say. Speaking of terrible things, Jackie versus Tina. This was arguably an ultimate game. Jackie won 12-10.
That's all there is.
Libby?
Both teams, I will say, both teams had really good pool coverage. So, I'm going to give them that, because that's something that my team and a lot of other teams don't do very well, and I think that can have a big impact. And I think that this also, helped to contribute to some of those turnovers. There was some first throw, really on both sides, some first throw turnovers, and I think that came from, there being defensive pressure. I think, Tina's team, they really need someone in their handler set that can just maintain possession. it doesn't have to be anything fancy or flashy, or it's really just getting the disc, throwing completions. I think
it
that
always
that's
has to be fancy or flashy.
Oh,
If you're not going to be fancy or flashy,
Yeah, what are we doing?
Playing a different league, yeah. And I think that, with Tina's team, I think maybe, because of all of those, they have had definitely flashes of greatness, and people are making good plays. Longo had an incredible game. I think Matt had a great game. And you have people making plays, but I think that with all of the turnovers that are being thrown, I think there's a little bit of a lack of distrust, and I think that's kind of made it hard for them to develop some chemistry. And on White, I'm not sure. I think maybe they're seeing some of the same things where they really have the speed and the experience and the skill sets to be at the top of the league. But they kind of just keep making some goofy throws and missed plays, and aren't coming down with things I think that we'd expect them to.
Yeah, I think Libby covered a lot of it. I think both teams played pretty good defense, especially deep defense, which I think was another part of why there were a lot of turns. Just throwing up a lot of kind of 50-50 shots, and the defense coming down with them, and I think that was true for both sides. And otherwise, I mean, I don't know if there's much else to say about this game.
I guess if you're gonna have 8-minute points, you want to have it in the first half of the league to condition you for the second half.
So this is the second straight week where we've seen Jackie's team rattle off and give off a several point run. The first week, I think they scored 6 out of 7. This week they scored five straight to take a lead, and then they lost it. So, or rather, I'm sorry, Tina was up this week. Tina was up. They scored 5 straight. Jackie was able to score 5 straight to come back.
It's a game of runs.
Yeah, it is a game of runs, but
I mean, when there's that many turns per point, it's almost like a coin flip per point. So it's just like, what are the chances that you flip a coin and it lands heads 5 times in a row? It's the same. There's the same chances as a team scoring 5 points in a row in this game.
Yeah, that's fair. Are we going to see more of this from Jackie? Do we expect them to be able to keep winning games where they let teams score 5 straight points?
I still think we talked about this last week, and I'm not sure how many weeks they get this pass, but they do have a lot of players that are brand new to the league, and maybe it's still that figuring out the space and the format, and
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to win this week, I'll tell you that much. So whether they give up a 5-point run or not doesn't really matter.
All right, and now we will never talk of this game again, and we'll go on to the final and, in my opinion, most exciting game of the night: Power Team versus Andrew. Lynch ran away with it, 17-12. They broke 3 times to start the game, and after that point, it never really was close. Joe, what were your takeaways?
Well, first of all, don't pat yourself on the back too hard, all right? You were facing Andrew's team, which has been ranked, at the bottom of the league, missing their 2 best players in Sharon and Evan. So
Hey, you play who they put in front of you.
Sure, but I'm not drawing too much from this game in terms of Power Team's abilities on the field. That being said, I think Andrew saw a good performance from some of his other women with Sharon out, sort of having to take on bigger roles. Sarah Wegman, swag case rookie, had really 3 goals, had a good game. Kathy, who played her second game in a row because Sharon wasn't there, and there was a miscommunication between Andrew and Sharon. Sources told me before recording the podcast that Sharon might have sent him an email, but it was to an old email that he doesn't check anymore.
Cool.
So he had no idea that Sharon wasn't there or wasn't going to be there, and so that was obviously pretty rough for them.
Yep.
and I think Kennelly, shown up for his first week of league, had a pretty solid game, but definitely not quite the impact that a lot of people were hoping to see from him, especially probably on his team, kind of being a little bit passive and hanging out in the handle set a lot, where I think he's really tough guard, really quick and fast when he gets downfield. Lynch's team, man, I want to dislike Lynch's team so much.
Why, Joe? Let's walk. Let's dissect
Get
that.
into this a little more.
I mean, Lynch is just kind of a love to hate kind of guy, I think, to begin with. And on top of the fact that he won the league last year, I don't want him to win again. I don't think anyone wants him to win again, except for obviously people on his team.
Which team?
I'm not gonna say it. Not gonna say it. That being said, they do have Brad, Corey, Hilton, and Gush, who are just 3 all-time goofballs who are great to have on your team, great to root for. They do also have the best celebrations in the league. I mean, there's no denying that. Just breaking random shit, ripping Lynch's shirt off after that crazy layout D. Mari, I agree. And Mari has just jumped on the table. She wants to be involved in recording the podcast.
Guest appearance.
She is our mascot. So, I even while filming, I was like, man, I want to be rooting for Andrew's team, but Lynch's team is pretty fun to watch, and they have a lot of fun, and that kind of, I think, spills over to the spectators. So that's what I got to say, but I wouldn't expect them to keep crushing teams as they get to some of the tougher games in the schedule.
Libby?
I think that, and maybe I'm just sensitive to this because it's something my team struggled with, but I think Lynch's team's end zone patience really separates them from other teams in the league. I think that they do a really good job of not forcing throws and really running the disc through the whole team as long as they need to score. They continue to flex well between the handler set and their cutters, where people are kind of sliding back and forth a lot, and I think that can be really hard to guard. I will say, I think maybe after Andrew's team's big comeback in week 1, I think that kind of set the tone for them to, be a pretty gritty team, and I think that they did that. They did some good team defense, I think, to maybe compensate for not having some of the matchups, not being favored in some of the matchups. But yeah, I think they were really hurting without Evan and Sharon behind the discs to really, I think, generate a little bit more movement on offense.
Also, if you haven't seen it yet, we got 2 great interviews with Val from Andrew's team and Sada from Lynch's team. They're up on the Cleveland Ultimate subreddit. They're like a minute each, and they're pretty fun. So you can get some of their thoughts on how the game went from somebody on the team who's not named Brad.
I haven't given many thoughts.
Good.
I don't think we need to hear me talk about how great the team is for another 3 minutes. I have nothing else to add. I'm obviously biased, but Blue probably has the best women in the league, right? They were crushing. And I know Sharon wasn't there, and that makes Orange a wildly different team, but Blue runs a lot of their offense through their women, and can't argue with results. So
I still think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens when they face some tougher teams. And I think in week 1, Tina's team didn't put a ton of pressure on Zoe in particular. It sort of played off of her a little bit and allowed her to run the offense. And week 2 with Andrew's team missing Sharon and Kathy, who was guarding Zoe for a lot of the game, playing her second game, I think that made it tough on her as well. So I definitely agree that they have played some of the best, although Iris outstats every team's women probably on her own. But I think it'll be interesting to see how Lynch's team as a whole and some of those individual matchups in particular against some tougher competition. No offense, Tina and Andrew, but I mean.
All right. Well, that's a wrap of the games this week. Very quickly, you read my mind. This week's subject is pools. Any guesses on what I'm going to say?
Across the board, they're not that great in the league. A lot of out-of-bounds pools, and it's something teams can probably utilize to their advantage a little more.
Joe and I had talked before the season started, since we're playing on smaller fields, of having a pool out the back of the end zone be worse than a brick. Somehow the receiving team gets some more benefit to that because it slows the game down. It's just annoying. It's also, I mean, you're disadvantaged by doing it on defense, I feel, anyway. Like, it's not that hard to have a kind of floaty pool that you can run down and cover that's in the end zone. But, Joe, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, before the season, and honestly even still, I'm of the opinion that any poll that's out of bounds should be more heavily penalized than just a brick, like half field, because we're just losing time, right? Like every time there's an out of bounds poll, it's like 10, 15 seconds of wasted time, basically. And when there's half of the polls that are out of bounds, that's like, 5 to 10 minutes, maybe, of game time that we're losing per game.
Well, the videos of the games are between 30 and 35 minutes pretty consistently, like right around there. So we're only playing 35 of 60 minutes that we're actually on the field.
And I'm not a proponent, I think some other people have suggested, oh, well, we should just move to no polls, play continuous, because then we actually get the most out of that hour. I'm not a huge fan of that because one of the things I like about Winter League is that it is very close to real Ultimate. Obviously it's 6-on-6, so it's not quite there. Feels a little bit smaller, it's not quite there, but I think eliminating polls changes it too drastically to be just a completely different game. But I think we could do things to try to still limit how much time we're losing from polls, and out of bounds polls is a big one.
I think it's something that a lot of teams and players just don't really even think about, which is the issue. I think maybe not having it roll out of bounds can be a little bit more difficult, but not throwing it out of the back is a pretty easy thing to not do.
Well, I mean, if you're super jacked, maybe. Not that any of us would know, but maybe that's a problem that somebody out there has.
How many weeks until we see a game with about 20 seconds left where a team is up by 1 and pooling? Maybe more than 20 seconds, and they aim for one of the windows.
Well, so that's
it's unbeatable. The only thing that could stop it is having spirit.
Well, that rule's going to change, right? I believe. So we've been starting the clock on the poll, but I believe that Lynch is going to officially arbitrarily change the rule. And by change, I mean it wasn't really specified. We kind of just did that, and I think it's either now or will be by this week officially changed so that it starts either when the disc is tapped in or when the first throw is made. I don't know.
I think it's when it's tapped in.
Probably tapped in.
So when it's tapped in. So that won't be a viable strategy anymore, unfortunately.
If that's an official rule.
If that is the official rule. Which again, it is arbitrary and it could change again.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, with the way things go, it'll be at least 3 or 4 weeks before anyone knows the actual rules anyways, and they're consistent across all the games. So there's still time.
Perfect. So this week's games, first up we have Iris versus Jackie. Iris winless, Jackie undefeated. Joe?
I mean, we're gonna pick up our first win, and we're doing it for Iris because she's playing just unstoppable, unguardable. She is in an unfortunate string of losing seasons as a captain, mostly as a captain who didn't actually want to captain but was forced into captaining because of outside factors. So first year she actually is getting to captain, and we've kind of been letting her down so far with losing our first 2 games. But I'm feeling good, physically ready for this game. I should be back out on the field.
As his aircast is airing out right next to him.
it's I'm feeling good, and I'm ready to pick up our first win and get ourselves back on track to make the playoffs and go on a big run for the rest of the season.
Libby, what are your thoughts on this game?
I think I'm gonna put my money on Iris. I think that this is the week that they pull it out. They've been close on games that no one thought they'd be close in, and I think they're turning the page here.
I'm gonna put my money on Jackie. I see this game being kind of sloppy, a lot of turnovers, and they've proven that they can win those games. So, this is
just how they like it.
Yeah. They're gonna know how to handle that when it happens. So I'll go with Jackie on this one. Game 2 is Gurgit versus Andrew. Andrew will have his full team back, I believe. Gurgit, I'm not sure whether or not Stitch will be playing. What are the thoughts, Libby?
I think I'm gonna go with Gurgit. I think that their consistency upfield is gonna come out on top here.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I think Andrew's team does have, I think they can match up decently well, but I think the fact that they also really haven't had their whole team together yet, I think they're gonna have some chemistry issues that other teams are gonna be kind of moving past already at this point in the season. So I think even though I in the pick'em I didn't pick them to cover the spread, I think if I were doing it again after thinking about it more, I would pick Andrew's team to cover the spread, but probably still lose.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Gurgit as well. Third game is Tina versus Libby.
I think we've got it. I think we're going to just keep improving, and I'm going to count on a million turnovers from Tina's team.
It might not be a terrible strategy.
I don't know if we know if Timmy is going to be back. I think I heard something that he pulled his hamstring before last week.
I don't know if they were given that notice in time to find a replacement.
Right. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be back, and if not, if they're going to find somebody to pick up. I also don't know if Beffel's going to be back, because he definitely helped calm their offense to some extent when he was on the field. But I think still got to go with Libby. I picked Libby last week. They picked up a big win.
We'll bring your other 0.5 happiness.
Yeah. I think they're just a better team, and Tina's gonna really they're gonna have to show some major improvements, I think, to get to a point where I'm gonna start picking them in these games.
I agree. I'm firmly behind Libby's team on this one. Final game is Lynch versus Felipe. Any thoughts?
I think Lynch has got it. I think that they've been pretty consistent up to this point, and they'll probably keep doing what they've been doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think Lynch's team continues to have a relatively easy schedule. Just if you look at the power rankings, they've mostly played teams near the bottom. So, yeah, I'm going to keep harping on that because it's the only thing that's making me feel a little bit better.
It's the only thing
the fact that they're undefeated. But, it's still something. So, I do think that they're favored in this game, and I think they're probably going to pick up the win. The big thing will be for Felipe's team, if they can, sort of get Abby even more involved, and if she has a big game and they're able to limit their turnovers, I think that'll be huge. I don't know that they'll be able to force a lot of turns against Lynch's team, but if they can possess a disc, they'll get enough chances, I think, that they could keep this game close and have a shot to win.
So I took a look at the record books, and if all the teams that are undefeated win again this week, and all the teams without wins lose, this will be the first time in Winter League history that there have been 3 teams of 3-0 and 3 teams of 0-3. Furthermore, that's completely made up. But after 3 weeks, if that happens, are those 0-3 teams out? Are we comfortable in saying they're done? their playoff shots are shot?
I don't think so, because it's still definitely possible, and I think that it depends on the circumstances, I think.
And I think we're gonna, as we get into more of the college season and have absences, I think we will probably see those come into effect as well in the second half of the season.
I think the only team that's really going to be hurt by Tina's team, the two teams that are going to be hurt are Tina's team and Andrew's team, both of which have several case men who will be missing 2 weeks. Actually, one of the weeks they play each other, and haven't won a game yet. So, while we're talking about this, I think it naturally segues into, are we at the point where we want to say any more teams are locks for the playoffs, or any more teams are locks for missing? Last week, just as a recap, Libby said that Lynch was a lock for the playoffs, and Joe said that Gurgit was.
I'm gonna add Lynch as a lock for the playoffs. It physically pains me to say these words, but
Power team.
not a lock to make the finals or win, mind you, Brad. 'Cause I know what you're thinking.
That wasn't the question.
Yeah, but I can read the subtext.
Libby?
Oh man, I'm gonna say Tina's team is out.
Ooh. And why do you think that?
I think that I just think they have a lot to work through. I think that there's chemistry issues there that I'm afraid are going to just take a little bit too long to work out. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of turnovers. That stat line has to get a lot better.
So you don't believe that Tinney could will his way and will that team to at least a couple wins? The week they play AT, then yeah, that's strap in, folks. I don't know what day that is, but that's a game you're not going to want to miss.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one.
Neither of them will be able to field a team.
I'm still not quite ready to count Tina out yet, just because only after 2 weeks we saw it happen last year that teams that just didn't look good early kind of managed to figure things out. And teams that look dominant, you never know. Somebody could have an injury, an unfortunate injury, or 2 unfortunate injuries. So
2 of the same unfortunate injuries.
So you really never know what could happen. And they, despite how ugly this week's game was, they still were close. Like a couple of those 5-minute long points go their way. And it's a completely different game. So I'm not quite ready to count them out yet. But it's close. It's real close.
Libby, are you going to lock anyone else in?
I don't think so.
All right. If any team goes 0-3 this week, do you think that's it?
I think for Andrew and Tina, I'd probably count them out at that point. Especially because, as you're saying, they have a lot of case men on their team who are going to be missing 2 weeks after this week. So, but obviously, if Iris' team for some reason doesn't win this week's game, then I'm still confident that we're going to make the playoffs. So,
all right. Any final thoughts, Libby? What's new with you? Oh, wait! Before we do that, Squarespace. For all your Square needs.
Oh my God, I forgot to make the email again. We still don't have an email.
If you have any
next week.
Yeah, if you have any feedback for us, let us know. A lot of people reached out, which is really cool. You seem to enjoy it. I know this week it started off a little rougher. Maybe a little bit of a different feel. We're just getting the hang of this. But if you have any feedback, let us know, and we'll be happy to ignore it. Joe, anything coming up?
All-Star game this coming Saturday. Woo! Very exciting. Should be a lot of fun to come hang out, drink some beer. It's at the Force on Northfield, so come hang out. That's where Winter League used to be held. For those of you who have been around, and Yeah,
all the way back to last year.
all the way back to. But there's
You
a
can
lot
remember.
of people. There's a lot of people who are new. So, yeah, that game should be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it, and so definitely come hang out at that. Follow us on Twitter, _Lookoff.
We'll probably get more active on that.
We'll get more active. We got a great picture of Pretty Dude Dave holding us down. So, that's how you know that it's us.
Hopefully we'll have a theme song next week.
Yeah, it's in the works.
It's in the works.
And maybe a logo.
It's in the shop.
We already have a mascot. She's sitting on Liddy's lap.
She's doing
and
great.
being very
She's doing
cute.
great.
Yeah, she is doing great.
She had a lot to say, but then she got too tired.
Yeah, I think that's all from me.
All right. Until next time. Keep looking them off.
Looking you off until next week.
Is that what we agreed it was going to be?
Something like that, I think. Yeah.
Here's looking off at you, kid.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.